Buenas and Hafa Day. Welcome back again to our Hafa Day Zoo podcast. I'm F. Glenn Lujan.
And I'm Joshua San Augustine. And here we have
Peter Constantino.
Yes. So welcome, Peter. And, again, we are just sharing our experiences, being a very prominent figure in the LGBTQ community. And, again, Peter is part of our house, the Sisters of the Moonlight, also as well as Lana. And we also have Miss Trinity, who's also part of the House of Diosa. So it's a beautiful collaboration of the two houses that you see here. And Joshua. Well, Joshua is considered dual citizenship.
There you go.
Still working on it.
Yeah, but we don't know. There might be a transfer.
Yeah,
he might put in a transfer.
They might, right? So
welcome, Peter.
Thank you very
much. How have you been?
Busy living life.
Wow, yeah. Well, to those listening, would you like to share your coming out story? We're generations apart, but we'd like to hear from your side of the woods.
Well, as far as I'm, how my quote unquote coming out story is, I'm probably what you might consider a late bloomer in today's coming out stories. I came out back in the 80s. And what I mean by coming out is just realizing about oneself and accepting oneself.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily mean that I had to come out to everyone else. But, of course, one must be able to accept who they are. And then from there, gain the confidence to be able to let others know who they are. And so my coming out story actually didn't happen here on Guam. I went off to college in the Philippines, and I spent 5 years there. And the friends that I had were very supportive, and gay life in the Philippines is very different from what it is here on Guam or possibly even in the U.S. mainland. It's a lot more out and proud there, as well as the support within their own community is very strong. And I see that also starting to happen here on Guam. And that's basically when I came out, probably around 84, 85, when I accepted myself for who I am.
Wow.
And the friends around me accepted me for who I am. And the only thing that was different, though, is the stereotypes that one would have per se in the Philippines versus on Guam and the U.S. is that when they feel or know that you tell them that you were gay, they automatically think that you're a female.
Oh,
and
interesting. Very interesting.
So, I always got asked questions. So, what type of guy do you like? And basically it's like, like this and like that. But they said, do you dress up often? And I go, I don't dress up at all. What do you mean by dress up? I'm basically a guy who likes guys.
Wow,
and I don't feel that I need to dress up as a woman to be who I am, because that's just not me.
That is so interesting coming from, coming out in the Philippines. Wow.
And of course, coming home, it's a little bit different. Certain members, of course, in my family eventually found out. And they were pretty much supportive. And basically, they just let me be. I didn't weird out on them, and as some people might think, or quote unquote, you flame out, because basically that's just not my character. So I am who I am, if that's any cliche.
Wow, man. Very Gloria Gaynor.
So, and that's pretty much it. I've lived my life out in the open. If I get asked, then I tell the truth. There's no need for me to lie about it. I mean, back then in my 20s and 30s, of course, one is still gaining the confidence in themselves. So, of course, there's a little bit of denial here and there. But as I got older, I said, just as long as you don't pay my bills, or just as long as you do pay my bills, whichever the case may be, then I will be truthful with you. And, it's self first, but at the same time, be able to incorporate oneself with the rest of the community.
Wow.
You have to love yourself first.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Love yourself first. That's the thing. And then after that, it resonates. Everything else happens. Like a butterfly.
When I was younger, my Nina's mom, who I was kind of like, she was more so the grandmother figure for me. She used to always tell me to have 4 things in my life, and that was faith, hope, love, and charity. If you had faith in God, you can have faith in yourself and hope for a better tomorrow, and you can love yourself first, and through that, you will be able to share it in a charitable way with the rest of the world.
Wow.
Well said.
She
Well said. I like that.
She was the reason why I was always dressed so smart and had Ken doll Barbie dolls and stuff like that. So
We gotta quote you in that. Seriously, that's wow.
yeah, she was my saving grace for the most part.
Wow.
Unfortunately, she never got to meet Trinity, but I'm sure she would be proud of the woman I am today.
Yes, she is. Hi,
Peter, did you go to any obstacles as big as being
Ostracized.
Yeah.
Well, growing up in school, I would say junior high, high school, the typical bullying happened, the typical name calling happened. But there were those that were around me that were basically able to protect me and somewhat shield me from those things. And they were the women, the female friends that I had. And if there's any guy that, it's like, you faggot and all this and all that. The next time I saw them, that's not what's coming out of their mouth. And I know the reasons why. Riding the school bus, I always had my own seat with my own friends, and nobody ever took my seat. So I was a little bit more on the luckier side as far as the bullying was concerned. For whatever reason, I just made friends with the sisters of the bullies. So they eventually became my protectors. And so growing up, I really didn't have too much of a problem. I mean, not that it didn't cause me any concern or cause me any heartache or things like that, because of course, who likes to be teased? Who likes to be called, derogatory names? But I guess I was able to grow a flak jacket, so to speak, enough to deflect all of that stuff and still remain true to myself. And, I finally, and as I got older, I finally started to realize that, the name calling means a little bit more of insecurity for the other person in who they are, because basically if they didn't understand the lifestyle, if they didn't understand the feelings that most gay people go through, then that means that they themselves are not secure in their own sexuality or in their own
and it's like
in
they're
their own
projecting
persona.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so for me, bring on the name calling, whatever the case may be. It's like it doesn't affect me pretty much anymore. Yeah. I said, at least I'm not doing what you're doing, which is nothing. So I'm taking care of myself, paying my bills. I don't need to go out there and sell drugs on the street. And just basically it was just trying to remain a good citizen and carry on as best as one can within your family.
I mean, I share the same experience with you. In middle school, I had 2 protectors, 2 female friends. And if you're listening out there, Jeannie Datu and Nanette, Patty Ogo Cruz, thank you so much for helping me. They had my back. I was always bullied a lot. It was harsh. And I, going to Agata, in my time in the 80s, people were, if they found out, or suspected you're not you're not one of those boys that are rough and Glenn's a faggot or Glenn's a fag. So I always had these 2 guys every time I was going to English class, and they were I always try to dodge them, but it just so happened when I'm right there, they're right there, and I can't. So one day, and I think I shared this in the last podcast, they were really mean and cruel. They're pushing me around. And then many of you remember Agata, the quads in the back, right behind the Orda Dental Clinic. So these 2 individuals were playing around, and they held me over the ledge. I don't know where the school aides were nowhere to be found, and they held me over the edge. Oh, we're going to drop you, fag. We're going to drop you and kill you, faggot. And already that moment, I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to die that day. And there was no school aides, nothing. But luckily, by the grace of God, my 2 friends, Patty and Jeannie, they saw it. They went and they jumped. This guy was twice their size, punched him. They punched him in the, in his crotch. He dropped down. They dropped me. They pulled me in. And I was just like, oh my God, they saved me. And I broke down and I cried, but I had to like compose myself. So I ran into the class. My English teacher saw what was going on. She was asking, and so Patty and Jeannie like, hey, these 2 boys over here on the opposite side of the English class in our quad is, they almost Glenn could have died because they were holding him over and thinking it's a prank. So they were called in, they were referred to the office, but bullying was harsh in my time. So it's interesting how we're sharing the 2 different stories, and it's that's great that you were able to have protectors around you. The bully sisters, right? Or their brothers became your protectors. But I have these 2 girls to thank, and to this day we're still friends. We're still good friends.
And it's just sad to know, fortunately yours didn't have a really bad outcome. But
I really thought I was going to die that day, Josh.
There's a lot of people out there.
7th grade, I really thought I was going to die that day.
There's a lot of people out there that didn't have the same outcome that you did,
Yeah.
And most times it became fatal.
And we want to shed light on this, that this is what we go through. It's the name calling, how mean people are. But it's like, look at us. We're so resilient, and we always keep getting beat down, just trying to live our truth, trying to be ourselves. And it's hard. And, we just want to let people out there know that listening, and you're going through this experience, you're not alone, it's going to be okay. It does seem like it's hard. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, but it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It's going to get better. Just don't give up. Like what Trin said, your faith in God, I think that's, for me, I can say that's what's gotten me this far in life.
I think for those who are kind of spiritually challenged, the ones who feel like there is no God, then, I don't mean to speak out of blasphemy, but if you can't have faith in God, have faith in yourself.
Exactly.
Have faith in yourself that you can pull yourself through anything, and have faith that you can get to that better tomorrow, get to the greener grass, get to the end of the rainbow, whatnot. And then from there, if you find more spirituality along the way, then good on you, but have faith in something to pull you through.
Yeah. And mind you, we're not perfect people. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, and these are part of our growing experiences. And like I said, have faith in something to pull us out of that dark side, because like what Lana shared with her story, with her battle with addiction. We have, and that's a big issue in our community, not just in our community, but in general as well. Yeah, and it's
in the world.
In the world, and it comes through a lot of they're going through a lot, depression, acceptance. You know.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that addiction doesn't necessarily have to mean vices such as alcohol and drugs. there's a lot of other addictions that you can get yourself into that are damaging to your psyche.
Yeah.
Hoarding is considered one.
You know, if I just feel like if you just surround yourself with the positive energy, it'll help resonate without. And, you know, I think that's why it's so important that, you know, we have the houses here on Guam, like the Sisters of the Moonlight Lounge and the House of Diosa. We also have Gumagela, and it's finding your tribe and finding that positive reinforcement to help showcase your truth and help showcase the light that you have to offer the world, because it's a very dark place when you don't have the light within you to shine.
And then thank you for sharing that story, Peter, about bullying, because that's a big issue, you know, and it's just interesting. Your story and my story is totally different.
I was very fortunate though, like going to high school in the 2000s. I graduated in 2005. So I remember there was only one dude, like maybe one or two incidences where guys thought that they can get me down, and they freaked out when the faggot pushed back. Like, you know, that's, you know, I stood up for myself, and like after that, they didn't come for me anymore. But for the most part, like at Sanchez, if you walk down the hall, like from the main office to the cafeteria, down the rows where the benches are at, there's all of like, you know, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but there's all of like, you know, the tough boys. And stuff like that.
The village boys,
Yes, and, you know, And I had, you know, the support from these boys who were, like, gangbangers and stuff like that. You know, like, these guys had my back, which was really surprising to me because I never really thought about it. And, you know, like, going through high school, I had mostly female friends, as most gay people do growing up. I guess it's just a comfort thing.
Yeah.
But I remember... I was in confirmation class for our retreat, and you know, I got really emotional, and I think I kind of scared my teacher because, you know, we did the whole sharing thing at the end of the retreat, and I was going through a really difficult time in my adolescent life. Like, you know, I was trying to deal with the physical stuff at home, trying to deal with my mental stuff internally, trying to deal with academics, trying to, you know, it piled up, and sometimes it can be stressful for individuals who can't process, and I was one of them, and I broke down. I remember the first thing I said, because I think the question was, what did you learn from CCD, like for confirmation class? And the first thing I said was, when I first came here, I'll be honest, I didn't believe in God. And the fear that was struck in the faces, I was like, but, you know, through the course of confirmation and like learning to bond with everybody and doing the whole Mount Lam Lam hike and all of that, and like 5-minute showers for the retreat, like my faith was basically restored because of the positivity that I had around me from people that I didn't think that I would ever get it from. And I remember after that retreat, like maybe I think it was like 2 years later in our senior year, one of my friends, like something happened, and I was just like down. And he's like, you know, he was very well known as being like, you know, one of the tough dudes, like don't mess with him kind of thing. And I remember he was like, hey, what's wrong? And I'm like, no, it's okay, it's nothing. He goes, dude, you broke down in front of me at confirmation. What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. Like, you know, if someone bothering you, let me know, and we'll go and, you know, we'll have a talk with them. Like, you know, that sort of response kind of took me by surprise, because I didn't expect these straight boys who had girlfriends that were my friends and stuff like that, you know, to not just be there in the present, but to actually have my back in that moment. Like, that was something that was very surprising to me, because I never in a million years would have thought that these dudes who run around and are like tough, like, you know, the village boys, like, you know, they have my back.
Dude, I got you.
Don't worry, I got you. As long as you're checking me out, I got you. Like, you know, like that sort of thing. And it was a real surprise, and it was very comforting for me to know that my peers who had my back were these straight guys that I would never have expected it from. And like, you know, I think it's kind of a testament of being true to who you are and opening up to the people around you, because people can surprise you. The human race is a very surprising race.
Yes, it is.
We go through so much hardships, and we don't necessarily know what everybody else is internalizing. And for all we know, everyone around us is sharing the same struggles.
Yep.
We may have different faces and different lives, but the struggles are all the same.
See, and that's the thing. You know, granted that we're doing this, you know, this podcast, but for those of us, especially our up-and-coming generation, those in high school, fresh out of high school, in their 20s and 30s. I guess during my time it was very different, but now there's much more. I would say even venture to say there's even too much variety out there, where it becomes so confusing. People aren't able to place themselves where they're at, and it becomes overwhelming. And then that's where the trouble begins. And when that trouble begins, it sometimes they don't know where to turn,
Right.
who to speak to, who to trust. And that's the biggest thing, is the trust. That they can go to certain people, certain organizations, certain groups, and be able to seek advice, seek an ear that will listen. And basically, we're not there to fix your entire life, but we can be a start. And, by us being able to tell them our experiences, what we have gone through, what they can anticipate growing through, that becomes a whole different light for them.
Yes.
And it becomes, and basically the bottom word is, or bottom line, is that it becomes a light in that darkness, where, they're just fumbling and not knowing where to turn. And there needs to be more support out there. Because let's face it, not only gay people have issues, straight people have issues.
Humans have issues.
We need
You'd
to
be
keep
surprised,
we
yeah.
need to keep
Humans.
psychiatrists and psychologists and clinicians out there
For real.
employed.
Yeah.
I mentioned that.
Yeah.
So they're not only for straight people, they're also for, alternative, confused, and basically that's what it is, or folks who live an alternative lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's something that Glenn and I spoke about. Like we're planning on bringing that, because from a lot of the outreach work that we've done, we learned that there are programs out there. It's just not too many people know about it, and that's partly why, we're blessed to have this opportunity, because we're not just giving our source a voice, we're giving everybody a voice.
And like what we mentioned, if we can reach out and help a couple of individuals or one individual and their families, get support and help, that's what it is all about. And again, it's a process. We're all learning. That's why when we got together and this idea of this podcast, it's to educate and enlighten everyone about our community, who we are, and we're just
And the very first thing I think they should learn is to help them out is the word faith. Have faith.
Faith and
Teach
love yourself.
them, yes.
Love yourself.
Faith first,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you're gonna start.
I kind of wanted to ask you guys a question when we were still on the subject with the younger generation and how they're very loud and aggressive. Would you guys say that social media kind of do you think social media kind of plays a part in that?
I think so. They want attention.
Of course.
Because we're this generation now, it's very very technology. You have easier access, and it's easier
you
to get
talking
exposed to
The attitude
influences.
Of the younger generation.
No, but when you say media, are you talking about them watching shows of,
Yeah.
Like those
violence with the gay,
especially the reality
and
TV.
there was one that I was so angry with, was that I have to say African American gay who was an actor in Empire, who set he set himself up to get.
Yeah. Do you remember Jamal?
Yes.
Yeah. He was.
And he said that the brothers poured Clorox over him or something like that. I was so angry because he ruined, there goes
He
there
ruined
goes
the positivity
this.
that people built up.
Yeah, you're
because it
giving the people again negative feelings because of what you did. You're gay and you're trying to do this just to gain promotion. It was a big thing.
Yeah, I think, well, I kind of feel on the fence about that because it's like a yes and no thing for me because, yes, media plays a huge role in how we're influenced to see the world, but ultimately, it starts at home.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's what I mean, though, because, parents can't necessarily be around their children 24/7 and filter the content that they watch or,
But then that's
decide to learn
as
from.
parents, though,
Yeah.
they should know that when they're doing this game of really bad violence or watching this, they should, you're there. Hey, stop.
But I think in turn, like, going what she was saying, it's kind of like, as parents, you kind of have to make sure that your children know that, yes, you're watching this, but this is how you should act accordingly.
Yeah,
of course.
Because that's what I mean, though. Because for me, the reason why I asked the question is because for me, it's like a 50-50
Yeah,
thing. Because
like, if
as
you-
much as there's people that are out there that are, like advertising the hate, on the other side, there's just as much people promoting the love and acceptance.
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying, like, do you think that's why it's more socially accepting now? Do you think?
I think if parents instill the right values, the content that their children are exposed to wouldn't necessarily affect the values if it's strong enough. And I think with mainstream media, as far as like television shows showcasing more of the rainbow community and RuPaul's Drag Race becoming more mainstream, like, I don't want to say we're a fad, but we're definitely more visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people are kind of easing into accepting or at least tolerating because it's so mainstream. But in the same token, you still have the bigots and the ones who just will absolutely not accept it and stuff like that. But then sometimes from households like that, there spawns a rainbow child from that household, or there spawns people who are, more tolerant and accepting and try and change the world for a better. And I really, it all, for me at least, it all comes down to the values you were instilled with, regardless of what media you're exposed to. If you have the proper core values, nothing in the world should be effective to you.
And I think, and that's the key thing there is that there's adult supervision, but also on the same time, there is parental involvement, there's guardian involvement, and awareness with what your child is doing or viewing or hanging out with, who they're hanging out with, and not necessarily to be a guard over that, but to be aware is the first thing, and then be able to, if you see that, that influence becoming negative or heading in a negative direction, then you need to be able to step in. And basically, as they are being eased into it, you need to ease the child out of it versus instead of just saying no. You need to figure out what got the child there in the first place.
Exactly.
And what became enticing about what you were doing. And then from there, I would hope that most adults, parents, guardians, would have at least the knowledge or the general knowledge to be able to, encourage the child to do something else because of the possible negative outcomes of those influences. And I myself working in the schools, I see it all the time with regard to the middle schoolers that I encounter on a daily basis. And the thing is that, we are taught in the schools as staff of the school to recognize somehow those types of traits, those types of behaviors. And, by law now, we enable our own children to basically rule over us. And, I know I'm heading down a road that's possibly nobody wants to discuss, But we have enabled our children as well as our parents to give them the world, but yet we haven't really taught them how to swim.
True.
We just dumped it all on them. Our laws enable them to do this and to do that. And unfortunately, there are no laws out there to be able to accept those consequences should they happen. And that's my personal view on it. Myself, I am not a parent. I don't have any biological children, but I am helping to raise nieces in my own home. And I am also very vocal as well as advisory in conjunction with my family as far as the upbringing of these of my nieces are concerned. And I just have a niece who's graduating now, and we've never pushed her or forced her to do any of the stuff that she has achieved. We've encouraged her, but with that encouragement also comes advice as well as being able to let them make some of their mistakes. Not all. Again, that's my personal view. And the mistakes that you probably are stopping them from making, you need to explain it to them as well.
The mistake doesn't define you.
And add that, and so with the topic of social media, Facebook, YouTube, the internet in general, basically opens up the whole universe, not only the world, the entire universe to them. And sometimes that can be too much information for them to be able to handle, for them to be able to discern which is good, which is bad, what is fake, what is not, who's lying, who's telling the truth. And even at that, even some of the most learned adults, goodness, look at what's going on in our own country. Some of us comprehend things in a certain way, and some of us look at other people's comprehension and said, what the, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Why do you think that is? But at the same time, there's no way to bring people to a middle ground. This is the problem.
As for me, I'm old school. I whack them. I mean, I'm sorry, but I have nieces and nephews, ages all the way up to 9. And when they get yes, all I have to do is stand up, look at them, and some of them will run crying because they know.
I know.
But then I go to them. I do go to them afterwards, and I call them and I said, "Do you know why I did what I did?"
Yes.
I said, because you are doing something wrong. I will not do anything to you unless you're doing something wrong.
And and that's the thing. That's the big difference that some people don't see, is that there's a difference between corporal punishment and downright abuse. Culturally speaking, Chamorro culturally speaking, and even Filipino culturally speaking, I can speak from both cultures, that there is always some form of physical discipline, and growing up, it seems to come around full circle, where I got spanked by my parents, and I told myself, should I ever have any kids, I'm never going to do that. But then when you do have kids, and I've seen other people who said that, and then they eventually have kids, and then they actually do it. So it's like, there is a right way and there is a wrong way to discipline. Yeah. And some people can't get it the first time around or the second time around, and it's all trial and error. Nobody grows up or comes into being the perfect parent. It's always a learning experience. So if you're not the perfect parent, then try to strive to be the perfect uncle or the perfect auntie. But get involved. Some people say, "Oh, that's none of my business. Oh, I don't want to get involved." But then when they see all that stuff happening out there, and then they say, "Oh, you should have said something." So don't regret. But when you do get involved, know what you're getting involved in. But do it from the heart. Do it with the best of the child in mind. And basically the family. Because I would like to still think that culturally speaking, we are very family oriented here on this island. And I would hope that never goes away.
Yeah, I feel that that's why it's a little easier to be gay or trans or whatever you identify as here.
But I grew up old school too and got spanked. And then remember when all this child abuse, right? I told my mom, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna call 911 child abuse."
Oh.
My mom goes, "Huh?" Give me my stop when she takes my slipper. I'm gonna throw my slipper and see how fast you can get to the phone and dial 911. I think my mom was like the first Medea. I think.
I'm gonna hit you so hard you're gonna dial 119.
And growing up and being raised Chamorro, it's back in the 60s and 70s was. I was born in 63, so I am 58 years old. I've tried many different forms of
discipline.
Not only discipline, but instruments of discipline.
Oh man,
The creativity.
yes, from the slipper to
it's when people when they become resourceful. Ooh, anything and everything is free game.
I tried the tangantongan stick when I was outside because I accidentally mowed my mother's prize flower by accident. How am I supposed to see that? Right then she just stood there. I'm like, "Hey, what did I do? You ran over my plant."
But
the slipper is like a boomerang. Just whoosh.
And some of us have bragging rights with regard to those instruments of discipline that we were disciplined with, and we're always. I know with my peers, I'm always comparing. Oh, I got this and I got that. The flagpole rope, the ramasgagu, the sancletas,
in my house,
the talipas.
I remember growing up in our house, it was a bamboo stick and it was really long. And I remember because it was one of my mom's friends that brought it over. And, we're looking,
they provided you the tool.
All of us, right?
They provided her the tool.
All the young ones, right? From my older sister, me, Kelly, and Kathy, we're all like glaring at this woman like, "How dare you bring this to our house," right? But it kind of worked out because, typical Chamorro woman, my mom had 7-day bracelets and all of that. So it's like we knew when she was coming because she used that to wake us up for school because we hated waking up early. So it's like, I remember just like yesterday, like she'll come in, she'll wake us up, right? And then I'm like, "Okay, I'm up." She leaves the room, I lay back down. Mm-hmm. Then she doesn't hear the water or anything going on. So, we're just laying there and we're waiting for the cue. We hear the bracelets, we're like, we sit back up. We're up.
But you're not moving.
But yeah, this generation needs to. Oh boy, yep, very different. Very different.
It's so much harder for them.
Very different.
Now.
Our LGBTQ rainbow children now as compared to us. We were like living in fear. Now it's like
much more,
try it. I'm like, huh?
Much more complex.
Like, boy, when I was your age.
Yeah, I'm sure they hate it.
It's like hold me back. Cause no.
Give me strength because she about to knock down.
And I can, I've done this with my sister's children. Her oldest son, he tried it. He tried it with me, in his teens. He was investing me, right? And he even, what's that, Peter, when you push petza? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So I said, "Lord, give me strength," right? And then he was going to come for me again. I mean, I'm not a fighter or anything, so I just, smacked him hard. I put him in his place. I go, "Don't you ever lay a hand on me." And then he's like,
I think
and then he's like, "Oh my God, Uncle Glenn, you hit me." And I go, "Yeah, I hit you. You want some more? Try it." And
so you were going to hit me?
Yeah.
They freak out, I think, when it comes to that sort of action because they're so used to seeing us so docile and
and because I'm gay, right? That Uncle Glenn's not gonna.
He can't hit.
He can't.
Like,
He's gonna hit like a girl, huh? So now he tells his younger brothers because they're in their teens now, "Don't mess with Uncle Glenn. He's gonna hit you."
And I think this very young generation who are still in elementary, that are in the family of pride or whatever, and if they were identified, are going to be very their retaliation is going to be real in front of us, because they would I think,
like what we were saying earlier, how they're so aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Aggressive, the back talk. Back in my time, at least.
If you have the wrong face on, you
if
get
you
hit.
even
Like,
was ready to open your mouth, that was it. You got a backhand.
yeah, the minute your lips part, no breath comes out yet, there's already a hand on your head.
Mm-hmm.
But it's we all, you guys just don't know.
Or maybe you
my
do,
life, I
and
had
you
to
can
fight.
empathize.
All our life we had to fight,
I love Hafa.
but I kill him there.
But and I feel for the children of today. The young ones, the up and coming. It's going to be very interesting for them to be able to balance a lot of this stuff. But you got to find the will. You have to find a way. Otherwise, it's all going to go to hell in a handbag.
But it's like
That's a
this.
LB handbag.
It's like us coming together and teaching them and showing them, educating them that, hey,
Yeah.
It was very interesting when I did my presentation this morning at Okudu, because I've never really done sort of things like that in front of minors. And I was I'm so used to speaking at the university for human sexuality and social service and all of those, they're older adults basically, and I had to kind of filter what I was saying, because I had to keep in mind that I was on school grounds. These are minors. Yes, they had filtered forms that were signed, but still kind of keeping it in mind that I had to sort of tone down the flourishment and not expose every dark little secret, because
I mean,
no, but no, Trin. But the
thing.
thing is now, because me as a teacher, elementary, the kids know.
I know, but I didn't want to offend, because I don't want. It was so hard for me. So if it's outside of saying, I talk to my nephews. One of my nephews, he's very out and proud and stuff like that. So we have honest conversations. But these kids who are if it's outside the school setting, if it's outside the place that's not really supposed to harbor sort of that kind of thing,
of course,
I had to kind of really be cautious about what I said. I even slipped up and cursed twice, but I'm just so used to it. But
and it's funny because we are very cautious in that public setting, but we know in the private setting it's a very different story for them.
And the children know.
And
different people raise their families differently.
Right. And I see it all the time. But then, when I got counseled one time for saying something, and it's really? And then the parent got called in, and they spoke to the parent, but they said, oh, my child knows that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But again, we're gonna. I don't want to go down that road with regard to enabling stuff from a government standpoint.
Right.
So there are ways to, to go about it without, quote unquote, breaking any laws. But sometimes it's those laws that we need to sometimes revisit. To see whether is this really for the betterment of the community because of that. Nowadays it's sad to say, most especially in this pandemic time that we are in, we're slowly coming out of it, and I see a lot of people going to end up struggling even more because there is not the help that they once had financially, because now they got to go out there and look for a job again. And if that job is not available or far and few in between or not what they were used to, we're gonna have a lot more issues again, and that becomes a domino effect with regard to being financially stable as well as emotionally stable, and then being able to guide your children. It's going to be crazy. and we need to gird our loins as far as the implications that are going to happen within the new coming school year and the next several years, actually, because everybody's going to have to reacclimate to having a job and not getting that financial stimulus help that everybody got so used to, even if it was not enough. But it's going to come to an end, and now we're going to have to start realizing certain things again and
going back to a state of normalcy.
Right, but it's not going to be normal.
The new normal.
It really isn't going to be normal from what we were pre-pandemic.
Even to, like, Trin, you were just saying, like, I didn't really think about it until you said it. Like, you had to go and speak.
Yeah.
Would you say, and would you, all of you even say, was there anything like that when we were going to school during our time?
No.
And that's what I'm saying. Like,
the closest thing I had, I think, was in senior year. There was a movie called Kids, if I'm not mistaken, and it dealt with kind of like the transmission of AIDS amongst teenagers. But even at that, we had to
I think I did see that. That was the one about the skater boys.
Yeah, but even at that, we
partying.
still had to get permission slips signed because it was such a controversial topic to be taught in the to be
school
showcased
setting.
in a
To be
school
discussed
setting.
in the system, yeah.
Like, I'm sure like health teachers were permitted to discuss AIDS and stuff like that, and sexually transmitted disease as far as health was concerned. But to watch a movie where kids are fornicating, that's a different sort of scenario.
Yeah.
Right, and even my time or Auntie Lana's time, within the 60s, the 70s, into the early 80s, none of that existed. At least not for me.
Same.
Sex education in school was... I had one teacher actually that I'm glad he did it. I'm not going to say his name or what school, but exposed his classroom to sex education and using the terminology of the day. And somehow that stuck with me. And being able to understand your bodies, understanding the male body, understanding the female body, and the differences between the two, and the hormonal effects between testosterone and estrogen, and all of that, and how it affects people's minds. And now it's everywhere except in the schools.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
I remember going to elementary watching videos about the reproductive system and stuff like that, but I don't think that that's available to the kids now.
Nope.
I'm gonna have to say, coming from because I was an educator in the I started in the 90s and the early to mid 2000s. I taught 5th grade, and we did have a sex education course, and we showed the videos, but we had to have parents sign the waiver. But man, when we did that survey, some kids didn't come to school that day because parents, were on the fence about it. And I totally understandable.
And that's fine.
But as I got out, and I moved to another department within DOE, I don't see it now. And a lot of it now is like, what's this? And especially now with our LGBTQ youth, that's a whole different level. There's no education for them to help them
That's an
feel
entirely different discussion.
feel safe. Like,
But that's what
why do I like a boy? What's going on? Is this right? Or why do I like a girl?
That's why it's interesting how Trin is sharing that they're doing that now, because that was never around when I was,
I think
even when I was going to school.
There's programs now developed for that. Yeah.
Who contacted me because she does. I think she was doing her goal for the summer school as a counselor was to bring presentations throughout the week or throughout the month for them, and because June being Pride Month, I was invited to speak for today's lecture at least.
Nice. I think that's some,
and they
some
should
kind
do more
of
of that.
improvement.
Yeah.
We've always tried to see how we can reach the youth, like you've heard how we try and and it's just always so. It's kind of challenging to figure out how to reach the younger children in the schools, not the younger children, but the youth in the schools, because it's a school. Like, how are we gonna, how are we gonna pitch
and
that?
And it's a sensitive, and how to dance around the legalities.
It's a very.
And then not only that, like, of course, if it's a school dealing with minors, you're gonna have to get parental consent, and they gotta know the content that's going to be shared.
But look, recently, Sanchez had a gay club.
They have a gay alliance club.
And then I remember it's kind of stopped because the child went to JFK or
he
transferred.
transferred.
And then it was started at JFK. And then, I mean, I'm going to say at Antolon, they had started a program for LGBT. One of the counselors there started it. And I was like, wow, this is exciting. I got excited. And then they even asked me, Mr. Lujan, would you like to speak on behalf of the... I'm like, sure.
Would you like to be our advisor?
I'm like, yeah, okay. But I was getting all hyped up, but then all of a sudden, thoughts that.
Yeah.
It kind of just, because the student graduated, but then the counselor left Antolon. And so I was kind of working, prior to the shutdown, I was working with some friends and working, with federal programs and developed some programs for our LGBTQ youth. But then COVID shut us down. So I kind of, worked. All this teleworking got busy, so I kind of put that on the back burner. But it's still been on my mind to help. That's one of the things being working for GDWE, I like to help in that area too.
And that's another thing about it too is because there's not that type of education in the education system. It's bad enough they're still trying to figure out how to fix the restroom situation in the facility itself. Yeah. And again, some of our facilities are older than me. And so, of course, 50 years ago, those types of facilities were not available. Yeah. I'm glad now that the new schools that are coming up and the schools that are able to modify themselves at least are starting it. And there is support I think, from the government with regard to that. I don't know if there are any mandates or laws with regard to that. I think there is. But, if they can fix the restrooms and change the restrooms, then we need to somehow find it in the curriculum and at least give the opportunity to students
a safe place for our
to be able to
change into gym clothes
and to explore that situation.
Because even when I was going to high school, like if someone came out and it became publicly known, the only option was to go to the nurse's office. I went to GW, so everyone knows the nurse's office is like literally walking distance from the gym. But I was just like, but for me at the same time, it's like, I understand the intentions, but why the segregation?
I think. So I was actually asked by the health teacher about that issue today. He brought up the concern about when the kids are changing for gym, those who identify as the opposite gender, they don't want to be
embarrassed.
They don't want to be insensitive to the situation. Be like, no, you can't go into that restroom because, technically you're still born, with what your assigned gender is. So they offer the nurse's office, and I think it's good. But he was saying that, when he came across that initial situation, the student had no respect about it. The individual was just like, well, I'm going to go in here. And yes, I understand you're standing up for yourself, but when you're trying to make your mark in this world about who you are, I think everything boils down to the way you exude that respect. Like if that individual was respectful about it and be like, excuse me, sir, but I'm learning this new life and I'm trying to transition. Is there any way I can possibly have an alternative to change? Think about how you're going to live, how you're going to present, how you're going to communicate, because people won't. Yeah, people are still learning how to deal.
It goes back.
Especially, if they've never experienced it before with an individual, then they're not going to know how to deal with it. So if you're deciding as a youth, this goes out to all the kids who are deciding to come out and transition possibly, don't be so aggressive. Be respectful about it. If you have gym and stuff like that, go to the guidance counselor if you don't think that the gym teacher will understand, and see if you can change in an alternative room or something, because it's, you're mandated to go to school. So you're going to have to, it's up to the people who are employed to keep you safe and educate you to find an alternative.
And with that, Trin, it also boils down to the education of the faculty and staff, because I mean, not everyone thinks, like me, but I always look at the kids and okay, we have to make sure and provide that safe space. Yes. There is laws for that, and we cannot discriminate. So of course the school will have to make special, accommodations and modifications in that area. I know at the middle school where I'm at, there was an individual identifies as born female but identifies as male, was provided that opportunity to change in the nurses' workstation. But, again, it's how the school handles it and how they do it appropriately and with dignity, of course, and respect.
But I think things are progressing, and
baby steps.
I really hope that it progresses in a timely manner, because these kids are coming out. There's more little hatchlings every day.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it India that first did the third gender bathrooms?
I'm not too sure, but I know that India did. So there's three.
Or they
genders.
recognized it.
India recognizes a third gender, and the third gender is anybody that's outside of the cis norm.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's unfortunate, because before they were regarded in such a high state, and now it's like the third gender, they're basically seen as lesser now. But I know that it's the Native Americans who still kind of regard the Two-Spirit in a sort of standard.
It's interesting that you say that too, because I remember watching something recently, and especially within our area in the Pacific, people who identify as trans or gay, they were very highly revered people in the culture.
But we don't have any documentation of that.
I know, but there's it's apparent in other places, and the similarities within that circle within the culture itself, I'm pretty sure we would have had it here too.
I'm sure we did.
And then the idea of being this way is bad was only introduced when Western influences.
Yes.
And which is kind of ironic, because Western influence is, believe it or not, the United States is not the only Western influence out there.
Yeah.
Europe was the first Western, quote unquote, influence. And in Greek society and Roman society, there was a third gender.
That's exactly what I brought up, though, today. Was that, it wasn't until the certain civilizations that started to become prominent that sexuality really became an issue for some people, because they started to really mark the lines and dot the T's.
I even learned recently that Spartans practiced that. That was a sign of.
Well,
it was an initiation.
The Hawaiian culture. There's a different. There's a documentary, on Netflix about this person.
Yes, I know that documentary. I've actually watched it.
This person is the one that does the chants, correct?
Yeah, and the culture.
She's a Kumahulu.
There you go. That's the
Kumahula.
She's respected.
Is she a really tall?
Yes.
Oh my God, I love her.
What's the name?
She's such an activist. Have you seen her before and after photos? Jeez.
And not only that, but not only in Hawaii, but throughout a lot of the Pacific cultures, the Polynesian culture, even in Melanesia, there are, I guess I've experienced more of the Polynesian cultures with regard to the third gender. And when I've traveled to those places, it was very much recognized, very much accepted, and they have their own culture with regard to it. So, that was also eye-opening for it, for me. And I'm going, wow, yes, they're westernized, but yet at the same time, they still have their practices, their understandings, their philosophies with regard to the third gender. And so I said, I wish it could be the same for us,
What do the Samoans call it?
Fa'afafine.
Fafa, right?
And yes, that was where I got exposed to that. And it was like, wow, in American Samoa. Even in New Zealand, the Aotearoa, with regard to their views on the third gender. So it was kind of interesting. And I said, man, I guess there's some good things about Western influences, and that's pretty much it. But being able to incorporate it into one's culture is the key, and there needs to be a balance.
Glenn, any last questions you could ask?
Oh, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, we'd just like to thank our panel of guests today on our podcast.
You guys want to say anything?
Any final words?
Final words, closing statements you guys care to share?
Being that it's Pride Month, I think I just want to send a message to everyone that living your truth can be scary, so just be brave. And when I competed in the pageant, my platform was all about kindness, and I just want to remind everyone, yes, it's good to be kind to others, but don't forget to be kind to yourself. You know, being kind to yourself will help you bloom into the person that you could potentially be.
Lana?
I don't want to be so. Anyway, I want to thank you all for letting me speak and bring me back a few years ago, my memories and everything. But my message is build your own memory and enjoy every second. If you don't know, if you're fighting with yourself, you have to seek help. And probably one of us here, we cannot, like what somebody said here, we cannot fix you, but we can help you try to fix yourself. That's about it. Just trusting God. Have God all the time.
Peter?
And as for me, it's, again, the sentiments of everyone else is be true to yourself. Be kind to yourself. If you don't understand something, then don't be afraid to seek the help, the advice, the company. In this day and age, it's very hard as far as time is concerned. We have so many things distracting us now, but somehow always try to remain focused. You're not going to be perfect 100% of the time, but strive towards that and just be true to yourself. And that way the people around you see that you are trying, and hopefully we'll be able to assist. And that's pretty much it.
All right.
For me, Pride this year. Pride for me has definitely been a lot of growth, a lot of self-reflection on my part, finding myself again, and ultimately, I've learned to forgive myself and to love myself again. It's been very difficult, but just being free now, living my truth, being happy once again, and it all boils back to my faith, believing again in God, and that God does work in mysterious ways, and you truly have your support from your friends and your family, and most especially the Sisters of the Moonlight, the House of Diosa. You all know who you are. It's been an interesting journey for me, and I just want to thank everybody. This year's Pride 2021 has definitely been a journey for me as well, and to all of you out there who are going through that personal journey, you're not alone. And stay true to yourself, learn to love yourself. And like I said, I thank the Lord every day. I'm truly blessed with many things that I've taken for granted, and I'm really grateful. And happy Pride.
All right.
Happy Pride, everybody. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Pride exists because you exist.
Yes.
And thank you. Thank you, everybody.